Hey friends! So today I am here to talk about one of the greatest things that I have ever done in my life. 70,000 tons of metal. I have been on 70,000 tons of metal for the past 3 years. And I get people commenting on my shirts a lot, asking me things like, is it worth it? Did you go on it? Duh, that's why I have the shirt, buddy. Is it worth it? Fuck yeah, it is. So I'm gonna talk about it a little bit today, answer some questions that people tend to ask me a lot as a survivor of the cruise, as they are called survivors, by the way. If you last through a year, you're a survivor. And yeah, I'll just talk about my experiences and why you should totally go on it. Before I get too far into it, I just want to make sure you guys know to hit the subscribe button below and hit that bell to make sure that you don't miss my next videos. I upload every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. My last video, if you want to check it out, is where I walk through this makeup look that I have on. If you like it, it's bold, it's fun. There's some tips too about not, having eye makeup that just flakes out on you throughout the day. If that's something you care about. If not, keep watching, and then if you like it, make sure you hit that like button and leave me a comment and tell me how great this was and how much it changed your life. So without further ado, let's talk about 70K. So the first year that 70,000 tons of metal happened was 2011, and I heard about it originally through a friend at school and when I was in college who went on that very first cruise and came back and told everybody like, yeah, he was just on it, and everybody knew he was on it, and everybody knew that he had a great time. So I've known about it ever since it started, and for a bunch of kids in college, a bunch of college metalheads sitting around talking about it, like, it's a pipe dream for us. Like, this friend who went was like a grad student. He was a few years older than us, so affording it was a different story than it was for the rest of us, but it was also something that we all looked at each other, kind of, and said, like, we're all gonna do this someday. Like, one day we're gonna make this happen. So when I was a senior in college, or I graduated in 2014, so it was the beginning of 2014 when me and my partner and a couple of our friends just said, fuck it, this is our year, we're going. And we just shelled out our money to pay for 2015's cruise, and that was the first year we went, and it was so worth it. And we've just been going ever since. Which kind of brings us to our first question that I get asked a lot, which is, how much is it and how do you afford it? So, it depends. The price fluctuates a lot, and currently there's no prices for next year on the website because they only put them up when they're actually booking. But all of the prices are per person, and really it can be a lot of money, but it doesn't have to be, and it's a really good deal for what you get. And in terms of affording it, if you think about dividing the cost over 12 months and you think about setting aside a certain amount of money each month to go on this cruise, it turns into something that's more of a manageable expense if you can do that, And also, just compared to anything else that you might spend a bunch of money on vacation for, this isn't necessarily any more expensive, and again, especially for what you get. So let's dive into that a little more. The prices, like I said, are per person, and they range from a little under 700, and you get the per person room cost, but then there's also like a $330 fee on top of it, which I'm not exactly sure what the fee is for, but it's there, so it's basically part of your cost no matter what. So with that fee factored in, the cheapest you could get on the ship for is about $1,000 US, and the price can go all the way up, again per person, to about $3,500 US. And again, that fluctuates with how many people are in your cabin and what kind of cabin you choose to stay in. So again, if you're your first year, you might end up shelling out a little bit more, because if you, they basically have a loyalty program set up, and people who have been on the cruise for 2 years in a row or more are able to book first. They get a code to book in advance. They can book the cheaper rooms first if they choose. So by the time they book, and by the time the people who have been on for 1 year book, and you're a newbie, you might end up with a room that's a little more expensive than what you originally planned or what you wanted, but it will be your only way on unless you are friends with someone who's already been on and can pull you into their cabin. So it's kind of an investment, if you want to think about it that way, that in your future years you won't be paying as much because you'll be able to get access to the cheaper rooms first. And also you get a discount, like a 5% discount or something, I think, if you're a gold survivor. So you get a slight discount on your price if you keep going. So again, if you want to think about it in terms of loyalty, there's that. But unless you know someone who can pull you in, you just might end up paying a little more than you want. That's what we had to do. We paid $1,200 a person to get on in our first year, and we split it up into 4 payments. And that's kind of, I wouldn't have been able to put it out right away when I was in college, but I was working and able to save up the money. I was able to make my payments. So that's how we made that work. You can choose to do it that way, or you can choose to pay in a lump sum, which again, you will get a 5% discount if you pay your full amount at once you book. So that's something to think about too, that if you're able to shell out, you know, however much money it is for you in your cabin with your number of people, however much money that turns out to be, then you're saving 5%. So if you think about it that way too, as you're saving. And again, I can't really tell you how much it is because it depends on the cabin you choose to get and how many people are in your cabin. And it's not necessarily like if you get an 8-person cabin, it's not automatically cheaper than a 4-person cabin. The prices are all broken down on their website, and I will put a link here. Obviously, there will be links below, links in this video, so you can see for yourself once they're posted, which again, at this time they're not. But to put some numbers in perspective from previous years, again, we spent $1,200 our first year to get a 4-person cabin that had a balcony. Then our second year, when we were able to book earlier, we booked a 4-person interior cabin. So that means no windows, no balcony. It was inside of the boat, and it's the cheapest room you can get, and we paid $1,000 per person to be in that room. And then this past year, we got a 6-person room that had a window facing outside, and that was, I want to say, maybe $1,400 a person. It was a little bit more than even our first year, or maybe it was about the same. I honestly can't remember off the top of my head, but it was not that much. It might have even just been $1,200. I think it was $1,200, maybe $1,300, definitely not $1,400. But that's how much we paid per person for a 6-person ocean view, no balcony room. So like I said, if you have friends who have already been on, see if you can get into their cabin and get a cheaper room, get booked a little earlier, get that discount, and pay up front if you can, and it's much easier to get yourself onto the ship that way. And again, like I said, it's a good deal. For all that money you get, let's talk about what you get for your per person room cost. So you get a space in the room, which it's a nice room. Like, cruise ships are nice. If you've ever been on a cruise before, you're paying for a cruise. This is a full Royal Caribbean cruise. Like, it has all of the amenities that you would expect, which, you know, there's multiple pools, there's a spa available, it includes all of your food, there are several restaurants and buffets on board, and your cost includes all of your food, as much as you want to eat, except for a couple, there's 2 places where you have to pay to eat, but again, that's totally optional. You never have to set foot in there if you don't want to. So there's all of your food, that's being able to go to the pools. There's a spa, which costs extra, but there's a spa. And there's a casino, and it's just nice, you know, it's nice. Like, cruises are nice. Again, if you've ever been on one, you know what to expect from that aspect of it. And if you've never been on one, just trust me, cruises are nice, they're fun. There's always activities and stuff on cruises, and pools, and just, it's super relaxing, you know, there's always kind of some way to occupy your time or just chill on a cruise ship. So that's one thing you're getting for the price. And obviously on top of that, you get a metal festival. So think about, you know, if you go to a metal festival that has 60 bands, think about how much you might pay for that. Again, it's going to depend on your country and your location, but you are getting backstage access, like VIP access to a 60-person or 60-band metal festival. And again, all of the bands play twice on board, and they're on board, they're guests just like the rest of you. Like, you will walk up to the bar and you will bump shoulders with somebody in your favorite band, unless they're like some of the really big bands that are on board tend to not walk around as much. Like, I think they must have some artist-only lounges that they hang out in or something, because you just don't see them as much. But a lot of the other bands hang out with they hang out and talk to you. Like, they're not just like, ugh, like, I want to hang out with a fan. Like, every single band that I've run into on board has been super nice. They, you know, take photos, they'll chat with you, they'll be like, let's be friends on Facebook. Like, they're nice, they're regular people. You get to hang out and get drunk with them. Personal highlight for me was getting drunk with Hailstorm in 2015. But, you know, like, there's a ton of bands on board. There's tons of people. You just run into them on the elevator. They're just there, which is really cool. And you get to see them perform twice if you want to. You know, obviously you don't have to go to every single set. That would be really difficult to do. But there's just bands playing on 4 different stages on board the ship from 10 a.m. to 3, 4, or 5 a.m. depending on the day. And that's pretty sick. So that's also included in your price. The only thing that's not included in what you pay in terms of what we've just talked about is your alcohol and your flight there, your transportation, your hotel, whatever you need to get there. You know, that whole all those expenses, that's not going to be included. So depending on where you are from in the world, it might cost you a lot of extra money to get there, or it might not cost that much. And the cruise leaves out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida, USA. So think about that as you're planning. For us, it doesn't cost so much money because we live on the East Coast in the United States, so it's a pretty short flight down, not too expensive, and you know, you can get a cheap hotel, you can get a nice hotel on the beach. It's all up to you. I think, in my experience, there are a lot of people who have been going since the first year, and they make a whole huge deal out of this every year and stay in a nice hotel for extra days in advance and after. And then there are the people who come from Europe who might, like, I've talked to multiple people who come from Europe or other parts of the world and say, I've never been to the United States before. This is my first time coming to the United States. So they, you know, make a whole thing out of it, and they stay a few days in advance so they can check out, you know, Miami and Fort Lauderdale, Florida, and just kind of see what the US is all about, which I don't know how that is your first impression of USA. Like, interesting way to start out, but no knocking. I would totally do the same thing if I were in their position. And so yeah, it doesn't include alcohol either, but the thing about that is, first of all, there are bars all over the ship. Like, they're everywhere, okay? There's not just like one bar and that's it. Like, they're everywhere. And the bartenders are super friendly, and they make strong drinks. They make very strong drinks, especially, like, again, if you are American, it's gonna be pretty good. I can't speak as much for other countries, what they might be used to in terms of a cocktail, but if you order a cocktail on the ship, you will be very satisfied, and they are never more expensive than $11. The cocktails are never more than $11 a pop, and they're big and they're strong, so it's worth it. Like, you're getting, you know, you're not getting ripped off. And even the beers are decently priced. Whatever you want to buy, it's not too over the top. And you cannot get an alcohol package. So again, if you've been on cruises before, you've probably purchased a drink package where you pay a certain amount up front and you get, you know, maybe all rail drinks for free after that, or, you know, for a certain price. They don't offer that on 70,000 Tons of Metal, and the reason is the first year they did that, and the cruise line lost a massive amount of money because they did not know how much metalheads drank. So they literally actually ran out of alcohol. They had to stop when they get to the stop, you know, at the you know, the island place where they all always stop. They had to buy more alcohol when they got there, and now they literally hold staterooms, which is what the rooms are called. They're called staterooms. They hold staterooms that people, you know, can't stay in, and they just fill them with alcohol, like extra bottles of anything you can think of is just in there, knowing that we're gonna drink them under the table. So that is why they do not allow packages for this particular cruise. But again, you're not gonna get ripped off. You're gonna be fine. And if you aren't planning on drinking or not planning on drinking that much, then you're not gonna end up paying that much extra. So there you go, kind of a positive there for those of you who might not be drinkers. In addition to all of the bands being out and about and performing 2 sets throughout the 4-day cruise, there are also artist workshops where, you know, there will be like guitar workshops or other instrument workshops. There's listening parties. If a new album is coming out, you can like do a meet and greet with the artist and like sit in on a listening party. If there's no new album coming out, there's still meet and greets for most of the bands on board. So that's kind of a nice extra. And speaking of the bands, you know, there's some really good bands they bring on board. They bring on board bands that you might not ever hear otherwise, like especially again if you're American. Like this past year they had Kalma on board. Kalma does not tour in the United States. Like I don't know how I would have ever gotten to see them live if they were not on the ship and if I was not on the ship at the same time. And it was a dream come true to see them. It was wonderful. They were so good and I love that. And there's just every year there have been bands where it's just been really special for at least one person in our group. You know, we're so excited to get to meet them or hang out with them or see them on a big stage and with all these other great metalheads and, you know, just doing things that we might not otherwise get to do. And that's really awesome, especially for us United States people who just don't have the metal scene that Europe has, or especially, you know, that Germany has. It's interesting when you talk to other people in Europe that really don't understand that metal is not mainstream in the United States. Like, it's not. And literally I've talked to people that are like, really? I'm like, dude, like you don't understand our culture, I don't think. Which is fine, not judging. It's just very like interesting to me that, you know, it really is a very different world in Europe in terms of metal versus the United States. And that means that the crowds are going to be different. There's not quite as much moshing on 70K as there is at typical shows, you know, that I would go to back home here. And that can be annoying, but also there's just kind of less annoying people in general. You know, the Europeans are so nice and they're just, I feel like they're in a way more down to earth about life and about metal than a lot of US metalheads are, people who call themselves metalheads or whatever, who just are tryhards. You know, like again, I'm doing a lot of stereotyping right now, but you know, you know what I mean, that there's just sometimes really obnoxious people at shows in the United States who just, you know, like you can tell that this is like their one night that they're going nuts out of the year. And like it can be obnoxious, but no one is really like that on 70K. Like, I mean, obviously people are drinking a lot, and not that no one is ever annoying ever. It's just like a more calm environment, but like 10 times as badass. I don't know how else to put it, but that's how it is. And it is mostly Europeans, by the way, just to make that extra clear. Like, you will mostly be talking to people from Germany or other countries in Europe. And you can probably count, or Canada is also very common on the ship. Not very many Americans like that you will meet compared to other people in other countries, which is really fun. It's very fun to get to talk to people from around the world that you wouldn't get to meet otherwise. And they are, for the most part, incredibly friendly. You know, like it's obviously in a group of 3,000 people, there's gonna be like creeps, there's gonna be just, you know, obnoxious people that you don't want to talk to, but the ratio is not nearly as bad as it might be at a typical metal show that I've been to and that I've experienced. That's just my opinion. That's a fun part of the cruise for me. So take that however you want to take it. And let's talk a little more about how wonderful metalheads are. So actually, you would think that maybe the cruise line staff would not be excited to serve a bunch of rowdy metalheads who are drinking a lot and all this, but it's really exactly the opposite. So see, these cruise line workers are used to extremely snooty people who, you know, older people who think, you know what I'm talking about, you know who I'm talking about. Like these people who have money, they think they're the shit, they think that these people are below them and they boss them around, they have these high expectations, and metalheads are just so chill. We're just drunk, we're happy, we're having a good time, we don't care, you know, most of us are not used to being waited on like this, and it doesn't matter to us, and the staff loves us for it. Like, they just straight up tell you how much fun we are, how much they love doing this for us. Like, the bartenders, like I said, are very friendly, and you know, they're the people who are probably working the hardest on the ship for this particular cruise, and they are never frown, never, and they're always so happy to serve us. And you know, your maid or whatever you want to call it, who like takes care of your room, you know, they're always super friendly and they're always saying good morning, and just let me tell you a story from this past year. So I was coming out with one of my other roommates from our room, and two of our other roommates were sleeping, and it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and they had like passed out. They'd been drinking all morning and passed out. And then we were coming out, me and my other roommate slash friend person are coming out, and our maid person is trying to go in, and we look at him and we're like, oh, you know, two of our friends are passed out, like, can you not go in there right now? Like, you know, we don't really need anything anyway, like, don't worry about it. And he's like, really? Like he wanted to go in and do something. We're like, no, like he didn't want to go in and disturb our friends, but he was like, you know, I've got to like do something. I've got to make sure your room is in order. And like he said something like, can I just give you new towels? And I was like, okay, sure, fine, you can like give us new towels. So I just like took the towels from him, and then I went in and I dropped them off in our bathroom, and I handed him our old ones, which he like apparently wasn't expecting. I guess he in his mind is thinking that he's gonna go do that, but I just like went and did it because I was standing right there, and like it was no big deal. And he was like, oh my god, like you guys are just the best. Like you would never be able to do that on a regular cruise. Like it just, he went on this whole spiel about how wonderful like we all are and how easygoing the people on this cruise are, and it was just really cute. And I liked that a lot, and it's nice that everyone there is having a good time, you know? So I think the last thing to talk about is the pre and post parties. Again, a lot of people show up early and stay late after the cruise itself. That is, you know, they show up a few days in advance and stay for a few days after. Mostly in advance. I think more people kind of leave and go home sooner rather than later in most cases, and more people show up earlier for these things beforehand. Again, this is a Thursday to Monday cruise. I don't know if I mentioned that, but Monday you're off the boat like in the morning. So it's a 4-day cruise basically. People are showing up on Sunday, Monday, sometimes Tuesday, and they're partying the whole time leading up until the cruise, and there's nothing to stop you from being a part of that too. As long as you have the money and the leave to go do that, you can and should totally go do that. And then there's, you know, the post parties too, but again, I've never been under the impression that they're quite as big, and I've always had to go home pretty much immediately after and been pretty exhausted afterward and not really wanted to party anymore. So that's like something else that's really cool, and you know, it just makes this big old cruise family. And oh, excursions are another thing. So the cruise stops at one port every year. Halfway through we show up at a port. It's been Jamaica for 2 years that I've been on, and this past year it was Haiti. And you know, it's just like a little port area where you can do excursions on the island and, you know, swim with dolphins is what I did the first year. The second year, like, we swam along this like river thing in Jamaica. Like it was like kind of like a little river tour sort of thing. And like this past year there was this like big zip line, and like there's just like fun stuff you can do, you know, and it does cost extra money and they are kind of expensive, but you know, it's fun. Otherwise, you know, you might just kind of be sitting around and, you know, sunbathing or doing whatever. Like there's things to do even if you don't purchase an excursion. But I think they're worth it. I think it's just a nice extra thing to do. I mean, you're already there, you might as well just go nuts. So yeah, that's another fun thing. Oh, but okay, I think I covered everything. That is all of my opinions and my experience surrounding 70,000 tons of metal. I hope that all made sense. Like, it feels kind of complicated to talk about because it's, you know, the bands aren't announced right away. Like, you literally won't know all 60 of the bands going on board until the week of the cruise. That's just how they do it. It's kind of annoying. I don't really like that they do that. I think they should announce them much earlier on and not spread it out over the course of months and months and months. So like 2018, nothing's been announced yet. There's no prices yet. There's no bands yet. But you can look at past lineups on the website, and you can... you know, like I said, I gave you what we paid for our rooms. It's going to be approximately that same kind of amount of money next year too. It just depends, again, how many people, like what room you want to get, what room you can get after things start selling out. But it's super fun. It is totally worth every penny to go. Seriously, like if you're on the fence about the money, like, if you have the money, spend it, seriously. Like, and if you don't have it, start saving. It is worth it. And if you keep going, you'll get discounts. It'll be a little bit cheaper every year. So give it a go. It's a lot of fun. It's a really great way to meet people from around the world, to see bands you might have never seen otherwise, to meet them and hang out with them and drink with them. And yeah, that's what I have to say about it. So again, if you enjoy this, hit the thumbs up button, and if you have any other questions or comments, you can leave them down below in that comments section, and let me know if I've convinced you to go or if I'm gonna see you in the future. And I'll see you later, guys. So in the meantime, stay metal, love yourself, and love others. Bye!